Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a Triad production. I'm your host, Sharlee Dixon. Joining me today is Leslie Cole. Leslie is the Director of School Solutions at eLuma and a dedicated educator who has transitioned from her role as a school psychologist to make a proactive impact in education. With a focus on psychological safety and connectedness, Leslie has worked as an MTSS coordinator and former administrator, committed to treating each student and staff member as a partner in the educational journey. At eLuma, a comprehensive student services provider specializing in mental health and special education intervention, Leslie continues to champion tailored solutions that address the diverse needs of students and foster growth and well being for all. We're excited to have Leslie with us today to discuss eLuma and the mental health needs in schools by supporting teachers, administrators, and parents with comprehensive, scalable solutions and innovative tools. Welcome to the show, Leslie.
Hi, Sharlee. It's very nice to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. So, as we get started, can you introduce us to eLuma and its mission in the realm of mental health and special education? And then, more specifically, how does eLuma aim to build brighter futures for students?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, building brighter futures for students is part of our mission. Just a little bit of background on eLuma. We were founded in 2012 and really started out as a related service provider for schools, being that partner when they had some capacity issues in the realms of supporting related services in speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, and school psychological evaluations. But really, our services have evolved. And at this point, we are able and happy that we are able to provide some end to end solutions for mental health with both general and special education students, along with those special education services. And that's really backed by our high quality online therapy that we're able to provide with our national network of providers. And really, our goal is to help schools and be that partner with them to build their capacity and provide those flexible solutions to meet their needs.
Nice, nice. And I really appreciate that it seems to be a wide range. And you kind of mentioned some of those services that are provided from psychoeducational evaluations to even some teletherapy. Can you kind of walk us through those key components of eLuma service offerings and how they address diverse needs of students?
Yeah, absolutely. The needs of a school district, a need of even a specific building within a school district can vary so greatly. As a former school psychologist in both a rural school and also in a very large urban district, you see the changes and the variability throughout that. With our national network, we're really able to support schools with those diverse needs that they have and supporting the students. So whether it be a different language that they might not have translation for, or whether it be a subject matter expert, as a school psychologist, one of my areas of specialty was supporting students on the autism spectrum. So really being able to pull from that nationwide network of providers that we have is one of the top ways that we're able to support those diverse needs of our students and the schools that we service.
Nice, nice. And so how does eLuma's framework support teachers? Because I know, especially since COVID, things have changed. Students' mental health needs have changed. Needs in the classrooms have changed. Really, needs everywhere have changed, especially for children navigating this new world, so to speak. So, how does eLuma's framework support teachers, administrators, and parents really in managing students' mental health and special education needs?
Yeah, this is a big passion of mine, actually, because I believe that one of the pieces that is missing in our education system is the understanding of it's really a human business, right? So we are servicing humans, they're students, they're little humans in front of us. And we need to also, as the leaders, be supporting the teachers that are there supporting the students every minute of the day. So how eLuma does that is we can provide things like professional learning, we can provide consultation to administration or coaching sessions and things like that. Training that's really tailored to best meet the needs of that particular school, staff, and parents as well. So we also offer caregiver training. So we really work in tandem with a school district to outline what their needs might be. And we are really creative with this because each school is so unique, right?
Yeah.
So we've got that diversity, as you mentioned earlier, and being able to support students that have different needs across the country. We have to be able to be flexible and adapt, and we do that. We really cater those professional developments and those training sessions and consultations to meet the very unique and specific needs of a school district. And that, like I mentioned, can range from supporting parents to supporting staff to supporting the administration and building maybe a system of support for students and for staff, something like that multi-tiered system of support or MTSS framework.
Nice. And one of the things that you and I mentioned right before we came on camera is that I am a former school social worker and have worked within the MTSS framework for many years at this point. And one of the things that I appreciate about eLuma is that it really addresses parents as well. That's not something that I've seen other than just school level based, having conferences and professional development trainings with parents. Being able to bring in an outside organization to do that is pretty unique. Can you talk to us more about how that works with parents? Is everything done through Zoom or Teams, or can you bring in somebody from a local place to work with parents?
So right now, the way that eLuma supports would be in that virtual capacity, but that doesn't mean that if the need should arise and it might be better service to be in person, that we wouldn't work with a school to try and meet those needs. But as far as, how that looks, the MTSS framework in general, not to go back to that, but that is an area that I have a big passion for in my former work with school districts, in school districts. So many things fall under that framework. And, we have our core and what works for, the majority of parents in supporting them, in supporting their student and their child might not work for everyone. And some might need some additional support, right? So smaller groups or maybe repetition or, training and support given in a different manner. So really being able to partner with eLuma provides, again, those flexible solutions to build the capacity of the families that we partner with the schools.
Absolutely. And you keep telling me flexibility, which is absolutely key, especially these days, and being able to not just work with students inside of the school, but administrators, parents, teachers, everybody that is a stakeholder within the educational system. That's impressive.
Flexibility, it has to be something that we think about, right? Schools are ever changing. You mentioned, the behavioral needs that are arising out of the pandemic. One of the things we talk about at eLuma is not necessarily that they arose out of the pandemic, but the pandemic really exposed those underlying
Right.
issues. Yeah.
Right.
And, there's other things that maybe we aren't as knowledgeable about yet. And we really want to be the support for the schools to be able to be flexible in the solutions and be proactive with them. That way we can best support the staff, the students, and the families that we serve.
Absolutely. And really along those same lines, can you discuss some of those challenges that schools are facing these days with special education, mental health support, particularly in the context of staffing shortages? I recently left the educational field. I hate to do so, but people like me, I mean, we're leaving the educational system. So can we talk about that in the context of those shortages and then the behavioral impacts that have really come from the pandemic as well?
Yeah, I'll share just a little bit of my personal story. I too left the school district and I was a school psychologist for a while. And I know that after I transitioned from my position, they had two others fill my position within, a 6-month turnaround. When you have that kind of turnaround, it's not always the most beneficial for students. And one of the things that eLuma does is that we find those quality providers and then we have schools that continue to use our services. We've got schools that have been using the same providers for over 7 years. When you
Right.
think about the relationship you can build with students, whether it's, receiving counseling or if it's a school psychologist delivering evaluations, there's rapport and there's a relationship that's built there. And having that virtual provider does allow for, again, that flexibility on the provider's part, and we're able to retain that staff more than some of the complexities that come into play with the caseloads that are put on a lot of the providers within a school. I know that it's inevitable. There's a lot of students that need a lot of help out there, but we run into things like burnout and, not finding staff in certain areas. Certain regions have real struggles with certain providers and certain disciplines in hiring. So it's nice that we are able to provide some of those solutions when school districts are up against the wall.
Nice. And it's something you said even really spoke to me. It is about being able to create and maintain relationships. Having a provider that services a school for 7 years is quite impressive. Even as a school social worker, I might have stayed in a school the longest was 6 years at a time before it was time for me to move on to something else. Burnout, you want to experience new things. And so being able to, as a provider, create rapport with not just students that you may or may not see for that entire 7 years, but staff members, and then even learn more things about the community and how to address certain needs that are based specifically on community impact is going to create or bound to create positive results for both students and the school itself.
Yeah, even going back and thinking about the families, right?
Mhm.
So you mentioned building the relationship with staff and students, but building that relationship with the student's family, that it gives a level of trust, and to have that long-term provider, someone that's there and watches your student grow and can celebrate in the successes, and you can have that deep-rooted feeling of, "Oh, they really know my student and they're providing that best support." It's really beneficial.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Whether you're a longtime or first time listener to Behavioral Health Today, you're probably familiar with Triad, the company that brings you this podcast. But you may not know that Triad also hosts a community for current and aspiring behavioral and mental health professionals, featuring trending content and education and career resources, all for free. If you are a behavioral or mental health professional, or you're studying to become one, join more than 80,000 people on Triad by claiming your free professional account today. Visit us at halotriad.com/BHT. That's halotriad.com/BHT and join the Triad community today.
Absolutely. I really like that piece. So, the eLuma Insight platform is a key part of the service delivery. Can you tell us more about that platform and how does it enhance the management of student support services and improve efficiency for schools and districts?
Yeah, so it's really an all-in-one solution. The software allows our service providers the ability to manage their caseload, to schedule sessions, document services, and even track data towards students' goals. One of the nice things for districts is they also have access to that platform, and they're able to access the summary and details of the data for the student receiving the services. So they can pull all of that right off of the platform, right from eLuma. And it includes things also like student attendance and, again, that progress towards goals, which is so important. We want to make sure that we're always striving to, support the student in the direction that they need to be headed with their goals. So it's a wonderful platform that has all of that ability. And then in addition to that, we also have our live chat features and our email support that are able to be at the ready throughout the school day to ensure that the platform is running smoothly and make sure that our providers can really focus on providing those services to students.
Nice, nice. And then really taking us a slight step back from that, how are the needs of schools assessed? And like you mentioned, schools, even in the same district, can need and want really different things from service providers. So, how are the needs of each school assessed?
Yeah. So when we're talking about that, again, going back to the individuality of schools, so we can complete needs assessments with students. We utilize something called the SHAPE. And then we also have some of our own needs assessments that we utilize to look at the school district and maybe one building within the school district to start and just understand what is currently going well, what has some, areas of growth, and then what might not be in place, and then really tailor and work with the school district to, move forward in the direction that seems most pertinent to support the most amount of students or staff and families at that time.
Nice. Okay. So let's talk a little bit deeper. What are some common misconceptions or stigmas surrounding mental health and special education that eLuma aims to challenge or really address through its services?
Yeah, so I'll start with mental health. I feel that one of the biggest misconceptions about mental health is that it has to be reactive, right? Or that you have to have a diagnosis to be able to get mental health services. If we think about that from a medical model, right? We go to the doctor, we do screenings and, we provide well checkups and that kind of thing, but we don't do that from the psychological end. So, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about mental health is that it's always reactive. There's got to be a diagnosis tied to it. When we think about mental wellness, right? It's the same thing as physical wellness. There are
Mhm.
things we can do to move along the progression to really ensure that we have that mental wellness. And that's, I think, one of my biggest pet peeves about mental health is that it doesn't have to be reactive. It shouldn't be. We can do so many things on the proactive front end of things to really ensure that skills are developed and we can meet students where they're at and continue to grow those skill sets forward.
Yes. Being able to meet students where they are is incredibly important work within the educational system, for sure.
Absolutely. And then you had mentioned special education as well. So I think with special education, one of the great things about eLuma is that with this virtual service providing, some of the stigma is already alleviated because, students aren't going to that classroom or they aren't getting called down. There's a little bit
Yeah.
more of inconspicuous, right?
Mhm,
Delivery.
mhm.
Using a laptop at school, using technology at school is a lot more common nowadays than maybe when I was going to school. And so we're able to, push down that stigma about those special education services because there's a little bit more privacy when we're working in this virtual setting. I was also going to say that one of the things that we hear from our students that they really enjoy is that the person on the other end isn't somebody that their parent or teacher is going to, run into at the grocery store. It's not somebody that's going to be sharing their information because they also live within the community.
Yeah.
So you get that again confidentiality. Obviously best practice, and I'm not saying that our on-site providers share in the grocery store at all, but just from the, that student lens, we need to be
Mhm.
thinking about that. And they do express that they really enjoy that level of privacy.
Absolutely. One of the things that came up, and you probably experienced it as well, working within a school system or in a school, especially with high school students or older teenagers, they did not. I can be the most fun person on the entire planet. You come into my office to play games and really just chat about your life, but they really didn't want to. They didn't want the social worker coming to get them. Please don't call the class and say that the
Mhm.
psychologist is coming. Please don't tell anyone that the mental health provider is here to see me. But when we brought in teletherapy and students were able to just come in, grab a corner in the library, put their headphones in, and work with their provider online, it did really change how they saw the whole system, how they saw the whole program, and they were really able to focus on outcomes and progress without worrying about who else saw what was happening.
Yeah, and if we think about the world that our students live in right now, it is filled with technology. And
Mhm.
a lot of our students are maybe not as comfortable having that face-to-face interaction. We are face-to-face right now in this virtual land, but it's a little bit less intimidating to do that in that teletherapy. And we hear that a lot from our students as well. It's more comfortable, more relaxed. And then, like you said, they're able to focus on those outcomes and their own self-improvement.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in the very beginning of our conversation, you mentioned that you guys provide a level of professional development or progressive learning to staff members. So, can you talk a little bit more about how Illuma approaches mental health and maybe even behavior management, and how they empower educators and supportive staff to foster a positive and inclusive environment for students?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just speak a little bit about a professional development that I delivered over the summer, or maybe even a couple of them. One that I'm thinking of off the top of my head was understanding and addressing student behavior. I was working with a school district that was looking for professional development to be delivered on one of their first days of back to school before students arrived. They wanted to be proactive and, give their staff some strategies to understand that our students are coming in with behaviors, but that behavior is a communication. What are they communicating to us with those behaviors? So we were able to get into all the nitty gritty of the first pieces of that, understanding, like I said, that behavior is communication. And then when we do understand what students are communicating, then we can put into place those strategies and those steps to support them with making maybe more appropriate school choices to get their needs met. That's one example. Another example would be more recently, I provided some trauma informed care training, something that again is coming up more and more. We are seeing, incidents of trauma on the rise with our students, and having that understanding of what is going on internally, right? Not just within our students psychologically, but also within them physically, the effects of trauma that was very well received. And I know that the staff felt like they understood their students that they are working with and instructing on a much deeper level, which again goes back to that human element of education that we often can just miss, unfortunately. There's so much instruction to be given, but we've got to return to that as well.
Nice, nice. And kind of along the same lines, we also mentioned earlier professional development or even some trainings and things for parents. So, not just for school staff or working with students directly, but can you tell us more about professional development or even just training or meetings and things like that that eLuma offers to caregivers to enhance their ability to support students? Because, especially after the pandemic or even during it, parents are seeing things that we never saw before. The much more focus on doing things online was mind blowing to a lot of parents. And so, can we talk a little bit more about how eLuma helps parents learn?
Sure. So, in my experience, as far as parent training, one of the things that I've always found very helpful to support parents with and provide them training with is social media in general.
Mm,
As adults, we use social media, but we use it for a different reason than kids use it, right? And we can navigate for the most part, the facts that are out there, and we can differentiate between things that are not factual. Being able to understand what a child is digesting within this social media content is really important, and something that's not always thought about when you're a parent and you've got a laundry list of other things that you need to do to
yep.
support your child with. So being able to give them just some real quick tips, monitoring the screen time, ensuring that they maybe have the passwords to all of the different platforms that the student is on, and maybe even taking a good look at what those platforms are and what the child is digesting on a regular basis. Other areas that are really important for parents to understand. For me, I always love to educate on growth mindset. You know,
Mm,
our words are so impactful, and when we speak to our little ones, if we are speaking to them from that growth mindset, really focus on their effort and praising them for how much they are trying rather than on that A that they're getting, or all the outcome stuff, really focused on that hard work and grit to get them focused and feeling, oh, okay, hard work is a good feeling. I'm
mm,
supposed to feel this way. Supporting parents and navigating some of that as well has been extremely beneficial.
nice. And speaking to that, are parents able to access the eLuma services on their own, or does it need to be as a part of, the school's programming or district programming?
So at this time, it's a great question because obviously, just like our students, our adults have needs as well. At this time, we are purely supporting our students within the school, so not the adults with any areas of mental health.
Okay, nice. All right. And so let's just say I am a school district superintendent or a building principal, and I'm considering partnering with eLuma. What are the first steps that I should take to get started, and what kind of ongoing support can we expect?
Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is I would encourage that superintendent or that principal to go onto our website and connect to get a free consultation. We can set up a call. One of the first things that they should expect is for us to really be asking questions on the eLuma side. We want to get to know the school district. We want to make sure that we have a thorough understanding of areas that they want support in, right? So we want to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to align our solutions and build that school's capacity, and really support that partnership.
Nice. And then what type of support can be expected? And then is there any type of kind of check-in system to say, okay, this part is working for us, but this one is not? And how do we manage going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our customer success partners, and they really are our point person for our schools. So they have regular check ins, they have that back and forth communication, should any needs arise, but also just that regular point person within eLuma to be able to, I have this question about, the provider doing this, or I'm wondering if we can pivot this. Anything that arises, our customer success managers are really able to support with that, and they are available and just absolutely wonderful human beings.
Nice. I really appreciate that eLuma kind of covers all of the spaces because for the most part, everything I'm asking about, you guys are able to address it, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It's
Um,
wonderful to be able to share that. Yeah.
yes, yes. And speaking of being able to share that, can you share some examples of how eLuma's teletherapy services or even the professional development, the trainings, how they've made a difference for students and schools?
Yeah, so we have a number of case studies, but just off the top of my head, I know that one of our parents recently shared some of the successes that their student had. They shared an experience that the student had had previously with a provider. They didn't mention if it was on site, in person, or if it was a telehealth provider, but their student wasn't really connecting. And they weren't progressing with their goals on their individual education plan. The parent went on to say that the relationship that the child made with the eLuma provider really made a vast impact on that student. They were able to continue to progress towards their goal, and they even reached a level of mastery with certain goals because they were able to have that continuing service, and that relationship was built over a number of years with the eLuma provider. So that one really stuck with me because that's our ultimate goal, right? We set our goals for our students and we want them to be as successful as possible. So that was nice to hear.
Absolutely. And we as someone that's worked within, IEP goals and things, it sometimes can be tricky to see the success happen. And so to be able for a parent to actually notice it is an even bigger outcome for sure.
I agree completely. Yeah. For them to be able to see that in the home, not just in the
Mhm.
one setting in the school, but for them to feel that at home too. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking ahead, how do you envision eLuma continue to evolve and expand its services to meet the growing needs of schools and their students?
So I see us expanding quite a bit. We're continuing to learn from the current partnerships that we have with schools. And what we really want to do is we want to build on that. So right now, all of our partnerships with schools, we're learning about how we can always be better, how we can always improve our implementation to make sure that we really are that capacity partner and that flexible solution for schools. We're looking to grow that and also, as schools needs change, we are open to, our changes as well, because the ultimate goal is those brighter futures for students.
Nice. And something that I did not ask before, but how many states and areas does eLuma operate in currently, and are there plans to expand?
Yeah, so there's always plans to expand, but right now we are in the majority of states. I think that Alaska and Hawaii might be the only two states, but I'm not 100% sure on that right now. But we are nationwide and we are available to support all of our states. And I know that we have a lot of very happy school districts that we partner with right now, and we're always looking to expand.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And finally, where can our listeners learn more about eLuma and explore the resources and solutions that you guys offer?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is going to be a really wonderful place to go. So that is just www.illuma.com. I think it'll be at the bottom of the podcast link as well.
Mhm.
But also, when you're in there, be sure to check out. We had some really recent video testimonials by some of our school districts, and they can speak about the services that they've been receiving from Illuma and some of the successes that they're having in their own school as well. So the website is filled with a ton of other resources. And like I said, we are always happy to hop on a call, do a consultation, learn more about the school and some areas of need and how we can support.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much, Leslie, for joining us. I have really appreciated speaking with you today.
Thank you. I have enjoyed it as well.
And thank you to our listeners for taking the time to join us. The resources for this episode and an archive of all of our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. And we look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.